Greetings and welcome. My name is Mike Bankhead. I am your host. I am a bass player and songwriter from the Gem City, Dayton, Ohio. It is my pleasure to welcome another Dayton-based artist to the podcast today. A very kind and altruistic gentleman named Zack Sliver. His project name is Yuppie. Yuppie put out an album called Peculiar earlier this year in 2022, and Zach and I are going to talk about that, about how he got started making music, and about, some other stuff. Let's get to the conversation.
Hey there, Zack Sliver.
Hello, Mike Bankhead. How are you doing?
Tired. That's a very lazy answer. It's the one I always say. But it's always true.
Yeah, the older I get, the more I realize that I'm not able to do everything. I can't check all the yes boxes, and I have to be a lot more choosy to what I say yes to. So I'm glad I could say yes to this.
I'm glad you're here. Before I hit the record button, I mentioned when you joined the room that you started talking to me and I couldn't hardly hear you because I had Mess It Up cranked really loud. That's the fourth track on your latest record, Peculiar. And you said that you were recently listening to it. And then I asked you if you still like it. And I wanted to get your response to that on the record.
Oh, I love it. Sometimes admitting that you're, I don't know, in the world of everybody has everything together on social media, and everybody's the picture perfect couple, and everybody's on the perfect vacation without screw ups. It's nice to let people know that, like, no, I mess up a lot. And having Samantha King sing that with me, she's a phenomenal songwriter and singer. Having the band that came alongside me, like Patrick Himes, Brian Hoflick, Scotty Houchins, just to be able to create this sound, it just, I was listening to it right before I clicked onto this because I wanted to get my mind in that realm. And it's Patrick was able to help me turn this demo that I had, these collection of 6 demos, and turn it into an album that will outlive me. And I'm just really proud that I'm able to put that into this world.
That's kind of the cool thing about art, right? It feels like you've left something of yourself behind. So we're going to have to go to square one because for folks who are not from Dayton, they might not know who you are. And we jumped right into the conversation. So, Zach, real quick, who are you? Where are you from? What is your project called? Go.
So my name is Zack Sliver. I grew up in Beaver Creek, Ohio. Did a lot of stuff in Dayton, charity-wise, helping the homeless. So I became really enthralled and loved Dayton. I joined the Marine Corps. I was in a band while I was in the Marines called Angry, Young, and Poor, which became the demos for my current project, Yuppie. And I was signed to a label for a little while, and then that kind of fell by the wayside and fell through. So I started recording with Patrick Himes at Real Love. And I've been doing Yuppie for about 6-7 years now. And we've released 3 records. Well, full length and 2 EPs.
If I ran into you at a music conference and I asked you for Yuppie's elevator pitch, what would you say?
Yuppie is happy songs about hard things. It's pretty much music you can listen to and know what it is like living in Dayton, Ohio, and a 30-year-old man that struggles with PTSD and try to use his music to push through life.
I like it. Not only do I like that, I like your band, which is why I'm talking to you.
Thank you.
Actually,
I like your band too.
I don't even really have one. It's just me. But like, even if I didn't like your band, I would still have probably had you on because you're just really nice and easy to be around and very friendly when I see you out and about at shows. And I had the pleasure of being an extra on one of your music videos, which is a really cool concept. And I know that's been a couple of years ago, but I still want you to talk about it just because it gives me an excuse to link to the video in the show notes of this podcast and watch it again like 10 times.
So, A Place to Call My Own, the concept was, we had that around 2016. I saw Tiffany Clark live painting, and I was like, wow, what would it be like if a painting came alive, realized it was being sold, and how would they react? Like, thankfully, you were in the beginning of that video. You guys made the beginning, the auction scene. Then everybody escapes the painting once they realize that they're alive. And then Brian Hoflick chases everybody and kind of finds them in different facets of their life. One of the people are striving for meaning in business and in their work. Others is friendship, one's love, and one is adventure. And so when they get put back into the painting, everybody has a piece of the world back in the painting with them.
It's a concept that I'd never seen before, nor could I have thought of it. And I just thought it was cool just to be involved. But when I saw the final product, I was like, whoa, that's like kind of a work of genius. Who comes up with something like that? You do. You come up with something like that.
Well, I had the initial idea, and thankfully, Bobby Tewksbury, James Lampy, Zach Thompson, who were the band members at the time, we were able to flush that out and make it a more defined and 3D atmosphere. I would like to say that I came up with everything, but if it wasn't for those guys, then it wouldn't have been as good of a music video, especially with Ethan Frederick shooting it. The man came out of Wright State University, and he's just phenomenal. So after that, we shot a music video for Get There. We won a contest, a music video contest, where we shot Get There with a roof design, and they did a phenomenal job doing taking this concept of how somebody can say something to you early in life, and it carries through different people and different interactions and kind of bleeds into your life. And then we're working with George LaBeouf now, who's also a Wright State film student, a good friend of mine. And we're shooting 6 music videos the first 2 weekends in February. And it's going to be all together one short film.
Would that happen to be because there are 6 tracks, 6 songs on Peculiar?
Yep. It's going to completely follow that record. I'm a big fan of a Cincinnati band called Y. And on their last album, they had a concept film with it, which Bobby Tewksbury was actually able to film, help film some of that. And just watching that from start to finish really made me want to create something from start to finish and not piece it out one by one.
This is a really good segue to actually talk about the record. I'm on your Bandcamp page. The official release date was June 16th, 2022. It appears to only exist in digital form at the moment. I'm pretty sure I saw you play a bunch of these songs at Sideshow, didn't I?
We did. The record was still being mastered around that time, and we were getting, I actually have CDs. Yep, of about 150 CDs that we've been selling, hand by hand to people, or somebody reaches out, I'll send them to them. A mega record
See,
or
it
a
doesn't
mega.
say that on your Bandcamp page, you know.
No, it doesn't.
Sorry, go ahead.
There's some work I need to do.
So you do have CDs, which means that once you update the page, anyone listening to this can go get one. If they are old people like me and still believe in compact discs.
I like having something that I can have in my hand.
Me too. How long did it take you to make Peculiar?
All in all, I think recording took months, 10 months, and then we had a couple rounds of mixing and then mastering with Alex McCullough of True East Mastering in Nashville. But all in all, about a year. I remember Patrick and I were having this conversation about, like, because he books up really fast because he's super talented. And he apologized to me, and I was like, look, man, I would rather do this record right than rush it. I've rushed other records, and they've come out pretty good, but not to the perfection standards of working at Real Love. And like Patrick being like, oh, we're going to do 8 hours of tambourines and shakers. And I'm like, do we really need that? And then listening to it afterwards, I'm like, yeah, how could we have not done this with shakers and tambourines? Because the man is a wizard, and he just knows what's going to create that song to a higher level.
Listeners to this podcast, you've heard the name Patrick Hymas before, and you only ever hear us say wonderful things about him. Zach's right. It's really hard to get in there because a lot of people want to work with him, which, from a certain standpoint, that's pretty cool for him that he's not going to run out of work. But it's kind of a bummer for the rest of us if you want to make a record and you got to find like spot in the schedule. When you first went in with these songs, how did you bring them in? How did you do your demos? Did you kind of do any arrangement or production, or did you just walk in there with an acoustic guitar and kind of show them?
So I brought demos that I had created. The group that I tour with, Operation Encore, they're a veteran music project that helps veterans' careers. Blue Microphones gifted them a bunch of Blue mics. So I was able to record on one of those and be able to craft it in a way that you knew where it was going, but you would never release it. Because I like writing songs. I am not the best at recording myself. Like, things are distorted or there's mess ups. But doing that and sending them to Brian Hoflick and showing him them. So I had a basic idea, pretty much the structure of everything going in. But obviously, in certain songs like NASDAQ, we changed the arrangement. And on certain songs, we would add parts or take parts out. So it was really the wizardry of the Hymes to be able to cultivate these songs and not be like, because I always was like, well, everything goes in the beginning. And it's like, no, you have to unveil the song, and the song has to grow. And it keeps the interest to the listener and having people convey everything. There had been other studios I'd been in the past where it was almost like going in, it was not as comfortable, and it was kind of more high strung. Like, and if you didn't get your parts right, people would kind of harp on you. But working with Patrick, like, I was doing tape recording for the first time and I was nervous. And the amount of patience and teachable moments that he taught me through that year of recording, I feel like I'm in one of my best friend's house and just like creating something special that will eventually show the world, and not being like, well, if you don't hit your part, you can just take the door. Allowed me to be a better musician, a better listener, to be able to find those parts and be like, well, what do you think? And then we both like sharpen each other's iron and be like, well, I think it should be this. And well, what about this? And I was like, I never thought of that. Like watching Patrick and Brian Hoflick talk about a drum pattern that my dad had been like, what if you do this during this part of NASDAQ with these like cascading toms? And Patrick was like, they did it and it didn't sound right. And Brian and Patrick were like, well, what if we flip the pattern and then do the accent on the fourth instead of the second? And it was just like, it's like Chinese for me, because I'm like, well, I hear you, but I don't. But watching just very talented people work on a project that, yeah, you brought is just profound and humbling. I'm like, do you guys believe in me? And it's just, yeah.
That's a really good painting of what it feels like. So, folks, if you want to listen to this record, you can go find it at the yuppiemusic.bandcamp.com. That's THEYUPPIE music.bandcamp.com. Digitally, it'll cost you only $6 or perhaps slightly more if you'd like to throw Zach more money. That way he can afford to make more music for you. And as soon as he gets the CDs up there, then you'll be able to get that. Now we're going to go back in time. I want to know how you first started learning how to make music.
My father, he's a pastor and played music in our church. He would also preach and stuff. But I started playing music in the church bands and then progressed to writing my own songs. And then it wasn't really until I was in the Marines. I was stationed in Okinawa, and there's a lot of restrictions in Okinawa, and I kind of felt repressed, and I wasn't able to be around anything beautiful or anything that drove me to like feel normal, because all the buildings look the same, everybody's angry all the time. And so I started breaking a bunch of rules, and I would sneak off bass a lot. And I played in the bar band Angry Young and Poor, and you had to be out of bars by 12 o'clock. But we got wigs, and they drew sleeve tattoos on my arm, and we would act like we were British because they would have patrols come through these bars to try to find military members out after curfew, and we would be on stage looking ridiculous in these wigs. But yeah, so I was able to start formulating playing music and trying out these songs that I had been writing in my barracks on people. And yeah, I think those years are the most formative because I was playing music pretty much every week, 2 shows, and we would play for sometimes 2 to 3 hours at a time. A lot of covers, but we'd play a handful of our own, and just kind of went through like a rock and roll boot camp. There was this other band that would give us pointers after, be like, well, you need to get tuners, and you need to do this, and you need to do that. Like the first time we played, I remember Tom Petty saying it was like a rolling train wreck. And that's exactly how our first show was. They stopped us in the middle of a song, and he goes, what the hell are you doing? And he's like, take 5 minutes, figure it out, and come back up here. And we came back and played a worse set. But the next day we practiced for like 8 hours and came back and knocked it out of the park. But slowly but surely, kind of just honing in the craft and trying to do crowd work and playing these songs and just trying to figure out how to do this in a foreign country and not get arrested for breaking liberty restrictions. I mean, in the beginning, I had beer bottles thrown at me on occasion. People try to grab the microphone. But all in all, wouldn't trade those years for anything, you know, because it definitely helped my songwriting process. We would record demos in a guy's closet in a barracks room and just be like, this is gonna be it. And then I got to Quantico and then recorded a demo CD with 12 songs on it. And that's ultimately what got me signed to Invention City Records in Dayton for the 6 years that I was on that label.
Nowadays, when it's time for you to write a song, the first tool that you reach for when it's time to write?
That's a hard question because lately it's been changing. Sometimes it's just a lyric that pops into my head or a collection of lyrics, and then I write from that, or I hear a melody in my head. I'll either sing it into a voice memo or grab my guitar and kind of piece it out. I found once I find the melody, I'll just play for like 8 to 15 minutes and just almost mock sing, even if it's just humming and singing nonsense words and finding those little nuggets or those earworms like, oh, what was that? And you could play, I used to do a lot longer, but going through 30 minutes is way harder than doing 8 to 10 minutes or 8 to 15. So finding that and then just keep building upon those little earworms or nuggets and finding the little pathways and finding where that song will go or what it's about.
I like that answer. So it sounds like you kind of meander your way to the finished song.
Pretty much. I mean, even the way that I've recorded some of the record, like, isn't traditional in how normal people do it. Like when we recorded vocals, normally, I mean, you're straight on that mic. And I'm like, how about I step back, we put the mic almost at my chest, and I sing. And we did that. And Patrick was like, oh my God. He's like, that ended up working really well. And it's kind of what I found out later, it's what Michael Jackson used to do. He would record himself in different parts of the room singing to create that natural reverb, but also just create a different ambiance. And at the end, we did the straight on vocal and it kind of concreted the vocals all together. But it's pretty fun. So it just depends on where I'm at mentally, physically, and where I write. Sometimes if I'm on the move so much that I'll just sing into my voice memos or grab a guitar and just play. I met this guy recently, Otz Kilcher. I went to Camp Southern Ground, which is a Zach Brown band campground in Fayetteville, Georgia, and they had a songwriting event there. And he goes, sometimes you just need to pick up the guitar. You just need, like on days where you don't want to do it, just do it. And the story sometimes will come out.
How do you know when the song is done?
I don't. I don't at all. I mean, I physically have to tell myself that the song is done. Because I will work, like, Patrick and I would go back and forth mixing and be like, well, did you hear that? Did you hear that? Or should we add this part or that part? So I think I physically have to tell myself the song is done now and draw that line, not so much in the sand because I don't want to step over it, but yeah, I have to tell myself or I'll keep writing and keep changing things. And it's almost like a blessing and a curse. Because at the end, you're going to be like, oh, I didn't take that one thing out. You'll hear it 3 months later. But I don't know. Sometimes I pray to God, and I'm like, can I hear a song the way other people hear this song instead of how I hear it?
You never will, though. When you've written it, it's not possible.
For a little bit, he's done it. It's that musician's curse of being like, it's my own song. How do you write songs when you're writing?
It depends on why I'm writing. If it's one of those days that I have set aside where it's writing time, it helps to have a prompt. Last week was a writer's week for me in an online group I'm in called the 5 and 5 Songwriters Group, where you have to write one song per day for 5 business days. But they give you a prompt every day. So you don't have to worry about having writer's block because here's this prompt, go. And the entire point of that exercise is just to get it done. Obviously, you want quality work, but you're supposed to turn off your internal critic and your self-editor and just write through the song. And then at the end of the day, if it's something that you want to keep, nice. If it's something you don't want to keep, well, that's fine. You've done the exercise. And I managed to only write 4 of the 5 last week. However, 2 of them are keepers and 2 of them require some surgery, but there's ideas. If it is a thing where I have a voice memo saved, I start with because we all do that, right? Yep. I start with the voice memo and go from there. But I am pretty much always chord first, melody second, lyrics last. The gentleman at your Zach Brown songwriting camp, his advice would not work for me because I don't play guitar. And I think that having that limitation actually makes me approach writing in a different way than a lot of people because it's like that's a skill I don't have, so I have to find another way.
Well, I think the basis of what he was trying to say is like what you're saying, like even on days where you don't have the idea or anything, just sitting down and forcing yourself to do it. Like, because there's days that I've been like, oh, I don't want to do this. And then I sit down and I come up with a guitar part and I'm like, oh, thank you. Okay. Yeah.
I feel like a lot of times as songwriters, we might put pressure on ourselves. And the thing is, I believe that you have to write for yourself first and for other people second, which means if I write something that I needed to write, I don't have to share it if I don't think it's good enough, or if it's something I needed to write for me and I don't see an appeal to other people. There's no rule that says you have to put out everything that you write. Just writing is in and of itself a valuable thing sometimes.
I was listening to a podcast with Rick Rubin, and he was talking about like how musicians, like, you have to write the music for you. If the music doesn't move you, how do you want it to move other people? You know, I'm pretty selfish in that because there's a lot of avenues I've wanted to go and I chose not to because it wouldn't have been who I am artistically. And trying to not censor or anything, but just trying to purposely go in the direction that I want to go as an artist. And musically, I've tried to stay pretty true to that.
That's not so much selfish as it's integrity.
Yeah.
I mean, look, if we're not satisfied, and this is not just music related, this is life related. If you're not doing things that satisfy you at the end of the day, then you should probably change and go find something that does, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I had somebody in my last music video be like, oh, he's selling out to Lee's Chicken. And I was like, what? Because I worked in a Lee's Chicken in the music video. And they also provided chicken to all the crew and everybody that was working on the music videos, the extras and everything.
They're delicious.
That's what I told him. I was like, have you ever ate Lee's Chicken? Like, I think selling out is adhering to something or a product or somebody that you don't stand by or whatever. I'm not here trying to be like, go eat Lee's Chicken. But if you haven't ate Lee's Chicken, that shit is delicious.
All right, I have one more question before the free Zoom cuts us off. And that is, think back as far as you can in your youth. What is the first song you could remember hearing in your life?
You Are So Beautiful by John Lennon. My parents would sing that to me when I was a kid. That song still to this day kind of tears me up. But yeah, that's probably the first song. I mean, my first three tapes I had were Bob Marley and the Wailers, Tom Petty, and a section of the White Album by the Beatles. But yeah, John Lennon, You're So Beautiful would be the first.
It's a good answer. That's the first, since I've been asking that question, that's the first of any of the Beatles or their post-Beatles projects that someone's mentioned. And I figured we'd get around to them at some time with the answer. That's good. I like the unique answers. Other than your website, the yuppiemusic.com, and your Bandcamp page, where can people get in touch with you or follow you on the internet if they wish to?
So all of my social media is the Yuppie Music. Anywhere, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, wherever you want to reach me, I'm on there. Our music is on any streaming platform if you want to add that to your playlist and share that with your friends. I appreciate everybody that takes time to share art, and not just my own, but others. And I think music is a really compelling and wonderful way to look at the earth and the way that we do everything. So thank you for loving art. Thank you for having me on this podcast. And I appreciate everybody that takes time to share music that they love and enjoy.
Thank you again to Zack Sliver of Yuppie for taking the time to talk to me. Thank you, dear listener, for being here all of 2022. If you've been here for a while, if you're new, welcome. I want to thank you for being here as well. I have a treat for you this Friday. That's right, this Friday, the last podcast of the year for the You Could Be My Airmus podcast. I welcome the music director of WYSO, Juliet Fromholt, and music journalist Taylor Ruckel, and we're going to talk about our favorite albums of the year. Come on back Friday and give us a listen. I think you'll enjoy it.